Um, Welcome. My name is Melissa Johnson, and I'll be the moderator for this session. Before we begin, we do have a few reminders. We have a code of conduct that we will adhere to for this conference. I'm going to put the link in the chat. If you experience any issues related to conduct, please contact us via email at the Gale Conference support email that is also posted in the chat. Please be sure your microphone is muted, and then during the Q&A, which will happen at the end of our presentation, please wait until you're invited to unmute before asking your question or making your comment. You can also use the chat or the built-in Q&A for questions as well. This session is being recorded. You can enable captions by clicking on the Show Captions button at the bottom of the screen. So today's presentation is Generative AI and Information Literacy, Exploring Student Use and Perceptions, and it is my extreme pleasure to introduce our speakers today, Breanne Kirsch and McKenna Jacquemet. Breanne is the Library Director at Illinois College. McKenna is the Research Services and Information Literacy Librarian at Illinois College. So please join me in welcoming Breanne and McKenna.
Okay, hi everybody, welcome. Sorry if I seem a bit off. Bree's the one with the headphones in, so I'm kind of going based off her cues on this. Just a reminder, there is the QR code, but you can also access the slides through the Gale website as well. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Illinois College, also called IC, and our students. We're going to go over the study and the preliminary findings, as well as have a general discussion if we have time at the end. And that picture is our library, Shiwi Library. Okay, so Illinois College is located in central Illinois. It's a small liberal arts college. Enrollment is about 886 students, so quite small. 36.1% of the students are low income. And so the majority of our students are white, although we do have 9.7% are African-American students as well. There are several online programs, including masters in our nursing programs. And so our college is quite small altogether, right? The study interacted with our Introduction to Information Literacy and Critical Thinking class, also called IC 102. All freshmen are required to take it and now pass it in order to graduate. It's a semester-long class that goes over how to use the library, how to use those resources, accessing databases, but also Google Scholar, and it goes into how do you find information on those databases using those keywords, but also how do you critically think about them, right? So we go over mis and disinformation, credibility, lateral reading. We go over algorithmic bias, as well as biases in publishing, both academic and in terms of the wider publishing industry. And so there's 3 faculty librarians who teach this class: Bree, me, and then another coworker of ours, Jada, which means that there's 12 sections in the fall with a cap of 11 students per section. So we teach quite a lot of the students. A majority of the freshman incoming class, we also get any transfer students or international students as well, right? So 12 sections in the fall, 13 sections in the spring, and 1 online section in the summer. And so for the study, the purpose was to investigate how students are using generative AI and their perceptions of it, right? Because there's all this conversation going on about generative AI, and we know students are using it, but we were very interested in seeing how they are reflecting it. What are they using it for, specifically in a class that's focused around research, right? And so we surveyed 165 students so far. They received 3 points of extra credit for completing the survey, but otherwise it was blind. So Bree didn't look at her students' work. I didn't look at mine, right? And we reviewed their annotated bibliographies. And for Bree's class specifically, they did learn about how to use AI in an ethical and useful way, whereas mine was they didn't learn as much about it to have that control of it, right? And so we reviewed the reflections from Bree's class, which were 29 AI reflections for Bree students on top of those annotated bibliographies.
All right, thank you, McKenna. And in addition, we did survey the students. And so these results, these initial findings are from the survey primarily, their annotated bibliographies, and also my students' reflections. So as McKenna mentioned, I've begun to introduce AI literacy to my sections of students. And for an algorithmic bias activity in class, I have them look at Duck AI and see if they can find bias in the tool's responses. And then I also introduce my sections to either elicit or consensus as the research-based generative AI tools. And then they actually have to write a reflection on using those tools, which involves responding to the following questions. What is beneficial about this generative AI tool? How could you ethically use it in your research assignments? What are the drawbacks of the tool? Do you agree that the sources recommended would help answer your research question? Why or why not? And finally, can you find the sources from the generative AI tool in our library or through iShare? That's the Illinois Interlibrary Loan System, if you want to use them for your annotated bibliography assignment. So now we'll touch briefly on our preliminary findings, including the annotated bibliographies, the survey responses, and then we'll talk briefly about theming of the 2 open-ended questions we had, as well as theming of my students' AI reflections. So here are the initial annotated bibliography scores. And again, there were 160 students that optionally chose to participate in this research. And we have a list here of the scores they were given from when McKenna and I reviewed them separately. First, we did one together to do inter-rater reliability testing to make sure we were on the same page with how we were reviewing and analyzing them based on our rubric. And we looked at the citation accuracy, the summary, the evaluation, and analysis pieces of the annotated bibliography, and then the total as well. And you'll see that the means were ranged from 3.24 for citation accuracy to summaries had a mean of 3.29, evaluation scores was a mean of 2.11, and analysis was 2.41. The total average or mean score for the students that filled out the survey was 11.06. Now that's just over half. And I do want to preface that by saying these are mostly first-year students, and many of them, this is their first time doing an annotated bibliography. And so it's definitely a teaching opportunity for a lot of them, and they start to learn how to do proper analyzing of sources and looking for bias and credibility and those sorts of things. So it's not that surprising that the mean is 11.06. All right, and here are the annotated bibliography and AI use key findings. And in this case, we looked at the relationship between students' use of generative AI tools and their performance on their IC 102 annotated bibliography assignment. Students who used at least one AI tool did score significantly higher than those who did not, with a P of 0.005 and a moderate effect size. The use of AI for research purposes, such as finding articles with elicit or consensus, was linked to higher total scores, and that had a moderate and large effect size, making it the most impactful AI usage category. Students who used chatbots had higher scores on average, but the differences were not statistically significant. And using AI for other purposes like grammar or citation assistance, brainstorming, studying, and completing assignments did not show significant differences in student scores on their annotated bibliographies.
Okay. So for one of the questions that we asked the students was, which generative AI tools have you previously used? Unsurprisingly, the majority did answer ChatGPT, which makes sense because it's the one that's most frequently talked about when it comes to AI. Same with Google Gemini because it's within our Google searches themselves, right? You could see 19 answered none, which means that either they hadn't previously used it at all or they didn't necessarily want to admit to it. But you can see the other ones where it says illicit or consensus are around 6 or 9. Same with Snapchat AI, which is 6. And so you can see it's a pretty good mix of the AIs we use in our everyday searches, whether it's Google or within social media are the ones that they're more likely to have interacted with. I do also mention in my classes that they interact with AIs on social media as well. But it is interesting that they are mentioning Google Gemini as well, and they know it by that name. And then we also asked them, which generative AI tools did you use for your annotated bibliography, specifically in IC 102? 30 said ChatGPT, right? And then you see 5 for Google Gemini, 1 for GitHub Copilot, 11 that says for research tools, 9 grammar citation tools like Grammarly, and then 119 said none. This could be in part because they haven't yet had intense classes or learned about AIs where you can learn about research tools or grammar, like Grammarly. Those are the sort of AI students often learn about in their second semester, their freshman year, right? As they're doing more intense research in their classes. And for the none, it could either be that they didn't use it or they didn't yet know how to use it because the way that the class is broken up is that the annotated bibliography comes last. So they have to do separate assignments that say, here's a list of book sources, here's a list of online sources, right? And so the way it's broken up means that it makes it harder for them to use ChatGPT if they were to doing it in an unethical way. But we do want to see those numbers rise in terms of using it for research tools or grammar and citations as well. Okay. And then we asked, how have you used generative AI in the past, which was the one that I personally found most interesting, where a majority at 131 said brainstorming, right? So it's AI is mostly used to help spark those ideas or overcome writer's block or get started on assignments. And so a lot of the students said it was to get ideas and better understand what they're writing about, or to quote, to help get the ball rolling on research, which is not surprising because that's what many of us use AI for, even as librarians or professors, right? It's finding those prompts. 78 said finding information. And so that's the finding basic information. That's where we see the Google Gemini coming in more, right? Or they might type into ChatGPT, help me find more information on aerodynamics or some topic like that, where they don't know yet where to go for that basic background information. 29 said completing an assignment. So maybe they did it for an assignment itself. We've seen a push on our campus to have more assignments around using AI, how to use it. I have one where I have them type their research questions into AI and see what comes up, and then we discuss it. 74 said research assistance, which could be anything from finding those alternate search words to finding sources or recommending sources. And then 26 said other tasks, and that could be everything from writing support to grammar checks to translation. We see that sometimes with our international students where they want to make sure that their writing in English makes grammatical sense, right? Or for spell check, possibly.
All right, and now I'm going to touch on our open-ended questions. The first being, how do you think generative AI should be used in college? And the second, is there anything else you would like to share about generative AI? For example, which generative AI tools do you think are best for college students to use? So here are some of the themes that came out for the first open-ended question for generative AI uses in college. And unsurprisingly, brainstorming was up there as the most popular response or topic mentioned by students. Again, as McKenna was saying, students want to use AI to help spark ideas, overcome writer's block, or get started on assignments. And they emphasized using AI as a springboard, not a substitute. Some of the direct quotes for this theme include to get ideas and better understand what you're writing about, used for helping form ideas, not in a cheating way, and to help get the ball rolling on research. Research was another overarching theme we noticed, with 67 being coded in this theme. Students valued AI for assisting in background research, summaries, and finding sources. Some students used it to locate subtopics, outline research, or explore complex topics. And the direct quotes related to this one include help with research and learning more about a subject, used to find sources for your research, research starters, and summaries. The third theme involved personalized learning, and this included creating practice tests, clarifying difficult topics, or maybe explaining step-by-step solutions. Especially this was involved with math and science. And AI is seen as a helpful tutor, study partner, or an extra teacher. Some of the direct quotes for this theme include create practice tests, clarifying something or explaining in more detail, and as a guide or another teacher. Then we had writing with 53 mentions. AI is being used for grammar or spell checking, rephrasing, organizing outlines, and reviewing drafts. Students appreciate AI's ability to help them structure their thoughts or draft an outline to help guide their writing. Students are cautious about using it to write whole assignments. And some of the direct quotes for this theme include to review grammar and punctuation, make work sound more scholarly, and help structure my own ideas into an outline. And then the final theme that came out for this one is academic integrity, which was a strong reoccurring theme. Do not copy and paste or use AI to do all the work. Many students expressed concern about dependence on AI or its role in academic dishonesty. Some of the direct quotes for this one include, never make AI complete everything. Used to help, not to cheat. And AI should not replace your own critical thinking. And one interesting assumption or sentiment that we noticed by one student was, and this is a direct quote, if professors use AI to grade, then students should be able to use it too. Now, I will mention our Dean of Faculty has told all of the faculty outright that we are not to use AI to grade. So I'm not sure where this sentiment or idea came from for this student, but the idea is out there. So they're saying, if faculty are using it to grade, why can't I use it too? So it's kind of interesting. All right, and then the next open-ended question involved the best tools for college students to use. And again, this is getting at their perceptions. We had 45 students say that ChatGPT is the preferred AI tool. So as expected, that's the one most students know about if they know about generative AI tools. Some students did list other tools for different tasks, including Elicit, Consensus, Perplexity, Grammarly, Copilot, Duck AI, or Grok as other tools they felt college students should use. 13 students indicated that they hadn't used many tools or weren't sure which tools college students should use. And then 9 students emphasized the ethical use of AI as being important. Okay, and here are some insights from my students' AI reflections. They talked about AI being a tool, and this was a valuable tool that can enhance the research process, but they did stress the importance of using it responsibly and ethically. And some of that may be parroting what I tell them in class, because I do tell them that. Same with, there should be a clear call for a balanced approach that combines the efficiency of AI with traditional research methods to foster critical thinking and ensure the reliability of information. And also, there was an awareness of limitations with AI. They're aware that there's the potential for inaccuracies and biases, and students advocate for a cautious, informed use of AI in academic settings. So going into some of the themes in the AI reflections, they talked about convenience and efficiency, and they appreciated the time-saving aspect of generative AI tools, noting that they can quickly provide a wealth of information and sources. And that efficiency allows students to focus more on analyzing content rather than spending, according to them, excessive time searching for articles. So a direct quote related to that: "It is very convenient because it allows you to cut your time in half. This tool can be very helpful in the bulk part of the research beforehand, but should not be used solely for the purpose of making an entire research paper or essay." Another theme that came out was ethical use and responsibility. Students did recognize the importance of verifying the information provided by AI and ensuring proper citation. They expressed the need to use AI as a supplementary resource rather than a primary source, advocating for a balanced approach that includes traditional research methods. And a direct quote for this one: "To use this tool ethically in research assignments, it should serve as a supplementary aid rather than a replacement for original work." Another theme that came out from these AI reflections were concerns about accuracy and reliability. They expressed concerns about the potential for AI to generate inaccurate or misleading information. And they compared AI-generated content to Wikipedia, suggesting that while it can provide a general overview, it should not be solely relied upon for factual accuracy. And the risk of hallucination in AI responses was also mentioned. And they talked about the need to critically evaluate the information that AI produces. A direct quote for that one: "Another drawback of AI is that it is not a dependable source. This means it cannot be completely trusted when using it for research." And we do emphasize the importance of lateral reading and the SIFT method in our IC 102 courses, so that may be why some of this is coming out in their reflections, which is a good sign. They're picking up what we're trying to teach them. Another theme was impact on research skills. Some students worried that reliance on AI tools might hinder the development of essential research skills, such as critical thinking and source evaluation. They stressed the importance of not allowing AI to do all the work because it could lead to a decline in students' ability to conduct thorough research independently. A direct quote for this one was, "If we let the AI do too much of the work, we might miss out on developing these skills. Skills like critical thinking, source evaluation, and the ability to conduct thorough searches." Another theme that came up was the potential for misuse. There are concerns for the students about the potential for plagiarism and academic dishonesty because students might be tempted to submit AI-generated content without proper attribution. And that raises the issue of trust between students and educators and the integrity of academic work. A quote for this one was, "With the easy-to-access information, students will use this to plagiarize and turn in assignments that are copied and pasted from an AI source with no citations." Students also discussed the variety of applications and that it can assist in the research process with brainstorming, outlining, and summarizing complex topics, similar to what we saw come out in the survey. And the ability to generate diverse perspectives and types of content is seen as a significant advantage of AI. AI tools can help generate content quickly and fast, this is a direct quote, which can also help spark new ideas and save time, which is massive when working on a project. And then the final overarching theme for the AI reflections was the need for verification. This was a reoccurring point with the necessity of fact-checking and verifying the credibility of sources that were suggested by AI, and students emphasized the importance of cross-referencing AI-generated information with reputable databases and peer-reviewed sources to ensure accuracy. A direct quote for this one was, "I need to make sure I do a deeper dive into the sources for information rather than just basing my information off of the little summaries the AI gives me." So that was encouraging.
So the overall discussion there of these themes, right? Because as you just heard, there's quite a few of them, right? Students overall value generative AI for brainstorming and enhanced learning, right? But they're grappling with the boundaries regarding academic integrity, as I think we've seen a lot of discussions around using AI in academia focus on that topic itself, especially as AI is developing in more and different ways, right? It's no longer just chatting back and forth with an AI or a computer. It's now giving us resources that could be useful or they could be hallucinations, right? And not all AI usage is equally beneficial, right? Tools that support research and comprehension appear to enhance students' performance, which is a good thing. However, using AI tutors for grammar correction, citations, or brainstorming showed no significant impact on the scores. This could either be because they're using those less, especially when it comes to citation help or Grammarly. There's a couple key citation AIs that students are using, but they're less aware of it existing, right? We also do see a lot of issue and difficulty among students in terms of citing correctly, just in general. But it's very much a conversation among students as well as us as professors and those on our campus of how do we show AI usage that can be beneficial rather than harmful or lead to plagiarism. Okay, and then these are questions to ponder, which are our questions for you all, right? It's questions that we have constantly running through our minds, especially as we're doing this study. It's what challenges have you encountered around student usage of AI in the classroom? How do you instruct on the proper uses of AI? Are there any activities that have worked particularly well for you? I don't know about you all, but Bree and I are quite big fans of gamified learning. So we've been trying different ways to bring that in when we are teaching students about AI. How are students or coworkers using AI at your institutions, especially because we are a small liberal arts college? How we use it can differ greatly from larger universities or public libraries or even archives, right? And then which AI are you seeing being used most often? We're seeing ChatGPT, but we're seeing an uptick in other ones like Consensus and Elicit, and it could be because those are the ones we are specifically showing faculty and students. But we were curious if there were any that you all are seeing, and then are there any that you're excited about? What are you using in your classrooms? So these are some questions to ponder that we really want to hear from you all. And if you don't get a chance to share with us in the chat here, please do put them in the Discord where we will try and answer questions that we can't get to and continue that conversation as well. And then the last is just a thank you. There are our emails should you feel you want to reach out, but it looks like we got a bit of time for these questions to ponder or any questions you all have.
Yeah, so feel free, as McKenna said, to type in some of your responses in the chat if you're willing to share. Otherwise, please add them to the Discord as well. And I think we did have several questions, and I think Melissa will let you take the lead now on those to tell us what they are.
All right. So we had a few comments at the beginning about Snapchat AI being wild and people agreeing with that. There was a question about on slide 10 what you meant when you were what was covered by the research tools. So I thought we could start with that one first before.
Yes, that was mainly Consensus and Elicit because those are the ones that I introduced in my courses. Good question.
Great. We had quite a few comments from people about student hesitance to talk about AI due to cheating fears, and so some of the people have said that, letting them know that how they use it tends to be able to open up the discussion about their own uses and is a way to build trust. Let's see. First question was, how did you decide on which AI tools to use in class assignments? And in parentheses, they put Duck AI, Elicit, Consensus. Was there a specific criteria or features you were looking for?
Well, I'll start since I'm the one who had my students introduce them to elicit or consensus. So each of the sections, I picked one in the fall and one in the spring to do elicit with, and one in the fall, one in the spring to do consensus with. And then Duck AI, I introduced to all of my sections, because the reason I picked Duck AI is because you don't have to create a login. And that, for those that aren't familiar, it's created by the folks that did DuckDuckGo, the search engine. And it's supposed to be anonymous, and they don't save the input in the AI, etc. You can also search, I think, 5 different AI platforms within Duck AI. So I like to show students that, because then they can try out multiple tools without having to create an account. And it is freely available as well. In terms of choosing elicit and consensus, those were just 2 tools that I think are very similar, and in terms of their capabilities and their research-based tools, which is why I selected them, since they have a free account available. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, so in addition to this IC 102 class, I also am the one who go in and do instructional sessions for other classes. Elicit and consensus are some of the ones they've heard because of Bree, but I do occasionally bring in Research Rabbit for the higher level students who are doing more intense research, especially to see how conversations within academia flow, who's citing who. But mostly when I talk to students, one of the reasons I do recommend Duck AI is because there isn't that login. A lot of the students are very much concerned with that. I saw it flows with another comment in this chat where these students, when we do the survey, it's their last day of class with us. Their very last day. So they've gone through and learned about AI and how to use it from not only us, but probably it's been mentioned a couple times by other teachers. And so it gives us an idea of what tools they're looking for through those conversations in the classroom as well, because we're learning how to use it together.
All right. Next question is, was there any method in place to discourage people from lying about not using generative AI for the bibliography?
Good question. Well, we did encourage people to say the truth and emphasize that we would not be judging their responses, and that they would be looked at in aggregate, and that we wanted them to be as honest as possible, and that, you know, our research is important for honesty, and that we aren't judging them if they're using it to complete assignments or anything, and that we wouldn't associate their responses with their names or anything like that.
Yeah, I also really emphasize the fact that I would not be looking at any of my students' annotated bibliographies. Bree would, and all of their names were erased from it. We just assigned numbers, so we'd have no idea who it was. And I really tried to emphasize to that to them. I also mentioned that we wouldn't be looking at them until after grades were submitted. And so it wouldn't, their answers, we want them to be as truthful as possible, and it wouldn't affect their grades except for the 3 points of extra credit.
How do you measure desire to teach ethical searching via databases and library resources, databases, etc., with some of the ethical problems with AI?
That's another good question. With AI literacy concepts, I do talk about some of the ethical concerns with AI, and of course, the credibility and inaccuracies and hallucinations and some of the other challenges with AI. But I also do think it's important, since future workplaces are most likely going to either require them to use AI or use AI themselves, that it's important we teach students how to use this ethically and effectively, so that they're ready for that use in the future if their career demands it. But I also give them the option. They don't have to use it after we explore it in class for a day or two. It's just to get them introduced to it so that they can see some of the positives that it can do, and also some of the negatives. So in terms of my desire to teach ethical searching via the databases and library resources versus AI, I do emphasize there are hallucinations, and that you always want to use lateral reading and checking the library databases and resources to make sure it's a real source that they're recommending, and to actually go and read the source, not just rely on that little paragraph that the AI spits out.
Yeah, and it meshes really well with the other conversations we're having in class. So we have an entire week where I focus on algorithmic bias and how algorithms can also affect what information we have and have ethical problems of their own. We talk about bias and prejudice when it comes to publishing, and what information we have in a library versus online, right? And so the way the class is built, in addition to teaching them about these tools and how to use them, we also teach them about the ethical conversations around those tools, and then let the students make up their minds about whether they want to use AI or not. And so I think continuing to have those conversations is particularly important.
So there was a comment about that it was a great quote from the student concerning faculty use of AI. So it's definitely a privacy issue, especially those who are using Notebook LM, which leads into another question of, are faculty coming to you for help with teaching AI in their classes, and how is AI seen by the college itself?
So far, the college is letting faculty choose if they want to let students use it or not, and it's up to the individual faculty member. I did lead a faculty learning community last year, and last semester, and it'll continue on next year for faculty around AI, and we're learning together and bouncing ideas around for assignments and how to prevent students from cheating and all those sorts of questions that are coming up from faculty. So yes, they are definitely coming to me for help with teaching AI in their classes, as well as McKenna. I know she's taught some in her bibliographic instruction sessions. So yeah, at this point, we're still kind of up in the air, and it's up to individual faculty to choose how they want to use it or not use it in their courses. And we are required to include some sort of AI policy in our syllabi as well, like whether we're allowing it or not allowing it, what is okay to do with it, etc.
Yeah, I am also seeing more requests from both students and faculty in my instruction sessions on learning not only about AI and the different versions of it, but also how to cite it and how to cite it correctly and when to cite it. I'm getting a lot of questions from faculty about that, so I'm starting to incorporate it more into my teaching sessions as well.
We had a question if you all use paid or upgraded versions of AI.
Nope, just the free versions. We're a small institution. We don't have funds for that sort of thing. I've seen the paid versions of ChatGPT from several faculty that participated in the learning community. And I've seen their created chatbots that they use, which is kind of interesting in their courses. But no, we have not used the upgraded paid versions at all.
How far along into the class were students when completing the survey?
It was the final class session that they completed the survey.
Another question about the survey. In your opinion, could this type of survey or a similar one be successful outside of a class setting? The person says they're most interested in how their university at large uses and views AI, regardless of their knowledge level in a class or otherwise.
I mean, it definitely could happen outside of a classroom setting. The one thing is you would need something to compare their responses to, which is why we did it in a classroom setting. Because without the annotated bibliographies, you would still get their opinions and how they're using it, but not how it's affecting their work or the quality of their work. I could see it happening either in a campus-wide survey or maybe even in a separate instructional session where I go to a totally different class that doesn't know me at all. And so I'm not their semester long teacher. I don't give them grades, but I could have them do some form of survey with an activity afterwards. So I think it could be quite flexible.
Someone commented that they're excited about the opportunity for the use of the AI to paper finder, and they shared a link to that in the chat. Few people are talking about how they struggle with talking about AI in one-shot classes where they're also trying to show them how to do research. There's just not enough time, which I think is the quintessential librarian issue. Somebody asked about Discord. Anybody know more about the Discord? Is there a link that we could share in the chat for the Discord, or?
So for Discord, if you go onto the Gale website, On the very front, it has a link to the Discord as well as instructions on how to get there. So you just follow that link.
Thank you, McKenna, as our resident Discord expert. They ask, could you share an example of an activity or game that you used to teach AI with your students?
Yeah, so I'll let Bree explain the game because that one's quite fun and she tried it for the first time this semester. But for other activities, often when I'm going into classes, if it's towards the middle or end of the semester, students are starting to work on specific research papers or projects. And so what I have them do is I have them get into groups and try typing in different research questions as whatever their research question is, right? So what is the economic importance of pirates? Like, I don't know, it could be anything. And seeing how each different version of AI answers their questions, and then if it gives them sources or not. And then if it does, they have to go and search for it and try and find the original article. I find that one's quite useful, even if it's showing them how to interact with an AI and how they differ and how they look and what information is suggested, but also showing that more and more AIs, if they're not hallucinating, they aren't giving any citation information at all for what they share. And so that's always a good one to do, especially because it means students already have questions in place. It is a bit more difficult if it's the beginning of the semester or it's a general library session where they aren't focusing on a specific project. And so that's the one where it would be interesting to hear what you all have to say, because I'm constantly trying to come up with new stuff because it's always difficult. But for the game,
yeah, I went to ACRL for those that were there. There was a session on, I think it was called Seekers Unbound or something like that.
I don't know.
And I'll have to look up the original title, but it's open source, it's available. They said other librarians could utilize it. So I used it and adapted it for our institution and used it in Jada's classes when I introduced AI. And it's a game-based learning activity. Slides are used and they roll a dice to see which realm they're seeking in. And then they get to try to use AI. That's one of the realms, a library database, library catalog. Those are some of the other realms. And then they have to do 3 different little mini search activities. And then they have to argue over why their search was the best and they found the best information. And then the final search activity, they actually are supposed to look up a fake event. And then, of course, the catalog people say, oh, I didn't find anything. My tool's horrible, you know, but then they find out, oh, it's a made up event. The AI tool, of course, finds information because it always tries to find information. And then they are arguing about all this stuff. And it's fun once they realize, oh, the AI tool just totally made stuff up there. So it's a good way to have game-based learning activity that talks about the benefits and some of the drawbacks of AI.
I'll share it in the Discord.
That sounds like a lot of fun. We have a couple minutes. So one person commented they've noticed that many of their students have little tolerance for uncertainty. So the second they hit a wall in their research, they turn to AI tools for quick answers. And then they come to the library and want answers rather than guidance. So how do you suggest incorporating AI while still building the resilience and patience that the research process requires?
That's a tricky one. I'd say, you know, explain that research isn't easy. It's not meant to be instantaneous and it takes digging, and you may have to check multiple databases, multiple sources to find answers, and just try to teach it, treat it as a teaching opportunity. Because I mean, I don't know how all of your libraries work, but we treat any reference interview or session as a teaching opportunity, and we try to teach them things while we're going through. We don't just do the work for them. So yeah, that's how I would approach it. Do you have any?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Bree. I think it's a little tolerance for uncertainty is quite a good phrase, because you get it not only in terms of AI usage and their assignments, but also anytime they're asking a question, right? They want us to be the human Google, and that's not going to happen. And so often what I'll do is I have to remind myself to have them do the searches or interaction in front of me, And sometimes that helps where I'm there if they need support, but the entire time, anytime they're looking to me to say, oh, how do I do this? I then ask, well, how do you think you should do it? Right? Let's do this together. Let's explore it together. And I find that helps where it's more framed as a, we're learning about it together, especially because often I know some about their topics, but not a lot. And some of those more intense sciences ones, I have no clue. So it's, let's find this information together. How do you think you should approach it?
Well, with that, we are at our time for today. So a big round of applause for Bree and McKenna for their session today. It was very, very interesting. One person did ask if the link to the game, I think you said Seekers Unbound, could be put in the chat because
I
they're
don't
having.
have it readily available. I will find it and put it in the Discord for our session. So check
Okay.
back there.
I
Yeah,
can pin it in the Discord so that no matter what, as long as the conversation goes, like it'll just be up at the top and you can find it easily.
Okay. And then I think we got to pretty much everything. So I thank you again for sharing your experiences and expertise with us, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the conference.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.